False Messiah rising. Iran protests are opening the door to the Mahdi, who they call the 12th Imam. Anti-government protests continue to sweep across Iran in what are now like over 100 days of protests. But what nearly everyone misses in all of this is the possible prophetic impact. Two Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps officials hinted at a coming division of Iran's government if these protests continue. Before we get there, though, a shout out to Jason Lawrence, who was very wise to see the prophetic impact of these issues and advise us about it. And a division of Iran's leadership is exactly what the Bible predicts in Daniel chapter 8, in a vision that Gabriel told Daniel was for the end of days. The days that we're living in right now, the last days. In Daniel 8:17 through 19, we read, "Understand, Son of Man, that the vision refers to the time of the end. He said, Look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation." And indignation here means wrath. "For at the appointed time of the end it shall be." So regardless of what so-called experts may have told you in the past about this passage, the angel Gabriel, who's the real expert here, getting his words directly from the throne of God after all, says 3 times that this vision is for the end times. And what does this vision say then? Let's look. "I lifted my eyes and saw, and there, standing beside the river, was a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will and became great." Daniel 8:3 through 4. So who is this ram? A few verses later, we're told it's the kings of the Medes and the Persians. So immediately, in your mind, you're probably thinking, oh, well, these are historic people, the ancient Medes and Persians. But we've got to remember that Gabriel told us, Gabriel who speaks for God, he told us this vision is for the future, for the end times. So it's not historic Medes and Persians, but the modern nations occupying this territory. And who is that? Iran, and maybe Iraq and the Kurdish region. So Gabriel told Daniel the modern nation of Iran would have 2 horns eventually. A horn that is high and a horn that is even higher who comes up later. Now a horn is a leader, so he is saying Iran will have 2 leaders. But currently, Iran only has 1, the Ayatollah or supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. So who is this second leader going to be? We are told that this second horn was higher than the other, and it came up last. So the second leader, who hasn't arrived yet, will become more powerful than Iran's current leader, the Ayatollah. And we believe this leader may be the false Messiah, or what Islamists call their Mahdi. Now, this is something that we have always felt will take place prior to the Great Tribulation, during the time that Jesus called the beginning of the birth pangs. So this is extremely biblically important stuff. And the Jerusalem Times have recently reported on this issue, and they think that now may be the time for this second leader to arise due to the political riots in the country. And to this ministry, this makes perfect sense. In fact, the Jerusalem Times is reporting that the leaders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, or IRGC, are saying this exact same thing. And the IRGC, after all, are the real power behind the throne of the Ayatollah. They're kind of his brown shirts. Just like Hitler had his brown shirts, well, the Ayatollah has his. And if the IRGC stops supporting the current government, well, there could be a new government. Hamid Abarazi, an Iranian Revolutionary Guard official, stated that senior commanders and officials had, quote, failed and stood against values. And by that he meant the supreme leader and the regime. Now, he said this during the ongoing wave of protests in a speech last week, reportedly broadcast on local TV. Abaraji also expressed condemnation of the officials who had not condemned the protests and added that, quote, first-rate officials of the regime, end of quote, were among those who were standing against the supreme leader. This is very important. So what this high-ranking IRGC leader is saying is that the Revolutionary Guard is divided. Some are against the Ayatollah and some are for him. Additionally, an IRGC commander in charge of a unit tasked with confronting the protests and riots criticized, quote, some elites for staying silent about the protests. Some elites were afraid of being harmed and damaged in their world and kept silent, he said. We do not deny the economic problems, high prices, unemployment, etc. But was it the right of the regime that anyone who comes can insert a knife into the body of the regime, end of quote. So what the Iranian government needs is someone to step in and quiet the protests. But who's going to do this? Is it another new politician going to solve their problems? No way. And if they stay where they are and don't do anything, it sounds like a civil war is brewing. This is why we think the Mahdi, or what they call the 12th Imam, is going to come into play. This is the Muslim Messiah, anticipated and revered by the entire Shia world. They're looking forward to him like we look forward to Jesus. So, if this guy was to come on the scene and take power, become the longer horn that came up later, as the book of Daniel says, people would probably be very, very accepting, completely turning the nation around. Of course, you'll say, Iran can't produce a Messiah out of nothing. Where are they going to get one? Well, just like the rabbis in Israel say they have been in contact with a false Jewish Messiah, the clerics and leaders of Iran say they have been talking to this guy, the Islamic Messiah, the 12th Imam. Here is what the Ayatollah himself said. Quote, many of our great scholars have personally met with this beloved Imam. The hearts of admirers during his altercation, many have made a pledge to him in person, end of quote. So they think this guy is alive and living in Iran. And probably some demonically inspired man is, and he's claiming to be this Messiah. In Iran's eyes, though, he is Islam's Messiah, the 12th of 12 Imams who are successors to Muhammad, said to have been born back in 879 AD. He's believed by Shia Muslims to still be alive, of course, and hidden from mankind in what they call occultation, until a time of such upheaval on the earth that only his reappearance will rescue mankind and, in fact, usher in the age of global peace. Islamic peace, of course. That's a kind of peace in which all mankind lives in submission to Allah and the Quran. So, is this that type of time? A time of great upheaval in the earth? Well, it certainly is in Iran with these protests. It's the kind of time where it's fish or cut bait for the Iranian government. The rest of us may not see it as that time just yet, but the Iranian leaders certainly do. Now, this Mahdi is invoked in every public gathering, both civil, military. He is the singular inspiration for every policy, every tactic, every mission. Indeed, he is nothing less than the regime's reason to exist at all. And as such, it's singular, unwavering motivation for the future. And they're going to look to him as their hope to hold on to power, in my mind. And what would be more important in their minds than holding on to the Islamic government that they have right now? So it is our opinion that sometime soon, likely this very year, the 12th Imam will present himself to the world to save the Islamic Republic of Iran from itself. And if he does appear, he'll be promoted above the Ayatollah since he is a divine figure of sorts. He's a Messiah. And in that instant, the riots and protests will stop as Muslims immediately begin to revere him and forget their problems. It's also likely this year, as we've spoken of before in other videos, that Israel is going to reveal its false Messiah. 2023 could be the year of the Messiah. It certainly is in Israel. Orthodox Jews believe their Messiah can only be revealed 1 year out of 7. And this year, 2023, is one of those years. So might we see dueling messiahs, one Shia, one Orthodox Jewish, both revealed this year? That is what this ministry thinks might happen. Jesus said that false prophets and messiahs would mark the beginning of the birth pangs. So if this happens, we believe that could be what is occurring, the beginning of that time. What is the fate of a 12th Imam? Well, he dies at the hand of fellow Muslims from Turkey, Daniel tells us. And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from out of the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Then he came to the ram that had the 2 horns. Remember, one's the Ayatollah. We believe one could be the Mahdi. And he ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. And he was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke both of his horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one who could deliver the ram from his hand. Daniel 8, 5-7. So another nation, the goat, is going to kill the Iranian leaders, possibly including this 12th Imam guy, and defeat Iran. Remember, this is history written in advance. Gabriel, who speaks to God, told us this, and that this is what we should expect at the time of the end. But who is this goat? Click right here to keep watching and discover how the rise of the Antichrist, who Daniel calls the little horn, is linked to this event. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.